Okay, before we get started, meditation is a practice that's found broadly in many religious traditions. In Buddhism, in its core purpose is to cultivate a mind that of enlightenment. And so through meditation, that practice helps the individual develop and cultivate this mind of enlightenment. In Jodo Shinshu, we recognize the difficulty of doing that, of progressing along this path that will result in enlightenment. And so in Jodo Shinshu, we recognize those limitations that I have, but also that the life around us at the same time supports us, nurtures us, provides us with the opportunity to see ourselves as we are and the world as it is. That moves us toward a deepening appreciation of what we experience and share with one another as human beings. So the meditation in Jodo Shinshu, more recently, in the past, I guess, 10 years, has begun to become more common practice in Jodo Shinshu. Previous to recent times, meditation was seen as something that exhibited self-cultivation, which would work in opposite to life itself moving us. It relied more on the individual's, was seen as relying on the individual's ability, skills, strength to cultivate enlightenment. When in Jodo Shinshu, it's this recognition of my inability to do that, relying on life itself. So previous to the past few years, meditation was seen as something that didn't belong in Jodo Shinshu, so it wasn't found in religious practices within Jodo Shinshu. So recently, though, there have been more introduction of meditation into Jodo Shinshu. And so how do we understand this practice of meditation in Jodo Shinshu, recognizing that it's not something that moves me towards enlightenment. It's not an effort on my part to cultivate the mind of enlightenment. Some ways of understanding meditative practice in Jodo Shinshu might be just to kind of settle yourself, to hear the teachings of the Buddha. So to set aside kind of the busyness that our lives may be filled with, to kind of take a deep breath before we begin the services. And so we start our services with this meditation, to kind of be mindful, to be, not to set aside things. Meditation in Buddhism is not to make things disappear, but rather to become more alert, aware of where I am, what my body is doing, the world that I am a part of. To hear the cars go by, but not to get stuck on that. To just hear and let go the sound of the car going by. Not to think, well, I wonder where my car is, or what am I going to be doing later on when I get in my car. So we get stuck on that. Or to hear something from the outside, laughter, and I wonder what they're laughing about outside. And if you do that, then to be aware of that. Aware that, oh, my mind is getting pulled that direction or this direction. And then to return to, again, this just kind of quiet settling. And I was asked to attend a Vipassana center in Cupertino. And we practiced sitting meditation. And serious meditation, I mean, 20 minutes is a short time. And I don't sit, right? So I went to this Vipassana class, and we started sitting like 40 minutes, and I'm thinking, I'm not going to make it. I'm not. In my mind, as I'm sitting, right, I'm thinking, oh man, when is this going to end? Oh, my feet, I'm going to go to sleep. Fortunately, I could sit in a chair. Others were sitting on the floor. Did I sit on the floor? No, I'm pretty sure I sat in a chair because I knew I wasn't going to get up if I sat on the floor. I'm thinking, man, okay, settle down, settle down. Oh, when is this going to end? Oh, she's moving. It's going to hit the bell? No, she's just kind of settling down again. Oh, man. It's a mess. So in Jodo Shinshu, it's much shorter. It's like half a minute. Just kind of take a breath, settle in, be prepared, prepare ourselves to hear the teachings of the Buddha. Okay, so we'll begin. There is a strike the bell and gassho, and then we'll sit for a little bit, and then I'll ring the bell again, allow the sound to resonate, and then Nembutsu, Namamida Butsu. Nembutsu in Jodo Shinshu, we've become accustomed to this call and response kind of Nembutsu. I say Namamida Butsu, everybody says Namamida Butsu. And I think that's a historical attribute. In Japan, they don't do that, where this Jodo Shinshu originates in. In Japan, they don't do that. We do that here, and I think it was because initially ministers wanted to encourage people to say Nembutsu, Namamida Butsu. So I said, okay, so I'll say it first, then you follow, okay? So I said, and then went back and forth 3 times. I think it's a characteristic of this Jodo Shinshu in America. It's not something we do elsewhere. So it's a historical kind of attribute or characteristic that's found in the West. So already Buddhism is changing. It doesn't take 500 years, it's changing. And it's, okay, so what are we doing? Okay, meditation. We'll start with a brief meditation, and then Nembutsu at the end, and then followed by sutra chanting, Junidai. And then we'll talk a little bit about Junidai once we finish. Okay, let's begin. The Nembutsu is something, in Jodo Shinshu, simply expresses our gratitude and appreciation. So that's why this call and response kind of Nembutsu really doesn't work in Jodo Shinshu. I mean, it works to get people involved, but it doesn't work to really enter into what Jodo Shinshu is about. Again, it simply expresses appreciation and gratitude. And appreciation and gratitude specifically for the promise of Amida Buddha to move all of us toward the resolution of difficulties that we encounter and experience in our lives. And really, that's all that Buddhism is about. How do we resolve the difficulties that we experience in our lives? If we don't experience difficulties, there's no need for Buddhism. Right? If you have no difficulties, no problem. No need for Buddhism. And we have so much invested in Buddhism that we say, what? You don't need Buddhism? Of course you need Buddhism. Everybody needs Buddhism. You should have Buddhism. I need Buddhism. But if you don't have any difficulties, there's no need for Buddhism. Because Buddhism is about the resolution of those difficulties. The Buddha doesn't need Buddhism. And I think we look at that and we say, oh yeah, we need to teach Buddhism because there must be something there that's important. After all, we've done all of this work. It's been around for hundreds of years, or thousands of years, literally. So it must be something important. So we should teach Buddhism. We should share Buddhism. When my academic advisor asked me about this was many years ago now. He asked me, why do you want to study Buddhism? And I said, well, it's been around for a long time, so it must be important. And he said, well, yeah, things that have been around a long time certainly must be something there. So why don't you study cannibalism? It's been around for a long time. This is my advisor, and it's Al Bloom. For those of you who have been around the BCA for a while, Al Bloom is a remarkable teacher. He has an interesting religious background, but he ended up in Jodo Shinshu. He was my advisor in college while he was a professor of religious studies at the University of Hawaii. He also helped to start the Buddhist Study Center, which is now in a same location but a different building. It was his walking across campus, seeing a house up for sale that initiated the start of the Buddhist Study Center. But he said, well, why don't you study cannibalism? It's been around for a long time. And that's stuck in my head all these years. I said, okay, so there must be something else besides longevity that makes something important. And I think we all know that. And it's not something, just because something has been around for a long time, that it has value and meaning. War's been around for a long time, so we shouldn't go practice war. There's a lot of things that have been around for a long time. And just because Buddhism has been around a long time isn't its importance. Longevity is not the importance of Buddhism. It's about resolving, again, the difficulties that we experience and encounter in our lives. It's simply that. And that those difficulties can be expressed in many different ways. It can be things that I experience, that I lack, that I think about, that may cause harm to myself or to others. It's these difficulties that are the same difficulties that Shakyamuni Buddha recognized 2,500 years ago. It's human experiences, not particular to Buddhists, not particular to any group of people, not Japanese or Indian or Chinese or Korean. It doesn't matter. It's human experience that Buddhism addresses. Human experience. And you can be in any tradition and experiencing the difficulties that Buddhism speaks of. And Buddhism's approach to the resolution of these difficulties are very specific. It's what identifies Buddhism as Buddhism. Because in recognizing what its causes are, we can begin to address the difficulties that we experience. And Buddhism simply says that the reason we encounter difficulties is we place value on the way that we see the world. My perspective has value. And that's all it is. The way that I see the world has value and importance. And because of that simple idea, we have all kinds of problems. In this political season, I mean, you look at the different parties. I mean, and as sincere as the different parties are, and I believe one party more than the other, that they're correct, the other guys are bad. They're no good. We're so entrenched in the way that we see the world and believe sincerely that approach to resolving difficulties is the correct way. We run into conflicts. It's the way that I see the world that results in difficulties for myself and for others. But we have to say, no. They have to understand what I'm seeing before we can arrive even at a compromise. Right? And compromise has become a bad word. You compromise, that means you give up something, right? Rather than take in something, you give up something. It's our attachment to our views that results in difficulties. Our likes and dislikes, our preferences, our prejudices, these all result in difficulties. And it's those difficulties that Buddhism is attempting to resolve. It doesn't matter whether you're Buddhist or not. Things like good, bad, right, wrong, we tend to talk about that in our religious institutions, how we should behave. Good, bad is something that is relative. And, I used to get accused of being a relativist, and I don't care anymore because it really doesn't matter. But we think about good we should be able to know what good is. We should be able to know what bad is, right? And so we spend a lot of time defining what good is and what bad is. Not so simple, because good doesn't function in isolation, nor does bad, right? So the example I gave in the Dharma school service was, we should all eat fish, right? We should eat more fish, right? This is not a trick question. We should all eat more fish, all right? And so you go to Costco, you go to Save Mart, you buy some tilapia. Farm raised, sustainable, right? Good fish. Avoid farmed salmon. I think Atlantic farmed salmon is supposed to be better now, right? See, I don't know, I can't keep up. But tilapia is supposed to be good, sustainable, easy to grow, a huge production. Did you know you cannot farm tilapia north of the Tehachapi? Just some information I thought I'd share with you. In Northern California, north of the Tehachapi, you can't farm tilapia because it's an invasive species. So they don't want to get it. They don't want it to escape into the streams, and then start breeding and eating other things. So north of the Tehachapi, it's an invasive species. So south, there are many farms. I think out in Inyo and those kinds of places, large areas that can farm tilapia. But when you farm tilapia, the question I asked the Dharma school kids is, what do tilapia do in water besides swim? I said, first thing they said, poop. Yes, they do. That's right. They poop in the water, right? So how do you get rid of the waste? You have to change the water all the time. Well, not constantly, but you need to be careful about on the pH. You need to be careful about the ammonia levels. It's just like an aquarium, a big aquarium. And you have to either add chemicals or change water. And often the cheapest way to do it is to change water. So they dump all of this water into rivers or streams or ponds, where it's then sent out into the world. And in a small farm, it's not too bad. Things can get absorbed. But when you start doing industrial farming of tilapia, it's a huge problem. It's a huge concern. So aquaponics is now becoming something that people are looking at. Small, sustainable farms, relationship between fish production and produce. So I have a little experiment going on at home. It's been running for about a year now. All I'm adding is, I used to do koi pond. Well, it's a koi pond extension, but the koi pond running with a biofilter. So the biofilter, basically you have your water circulating through the biofilter. It's not mechanical in the sense that it doesn't filter out particulates. The water is allowed to flow through this filter, and I made the filter with shredded PVC pipe. It increases the surface of the material the surface upon which bacteria grows. And these bacteria then converts the ammonia into nitrates and nitrites that plants can use, or that is more neutral than the ammonia that is given off by the fish. But even with that system, I needed to clean it every once in a while. And then, so people introduce plants into ponds, duckweed, hyacinth, those kinds of things, to absorb the nitrates and nitrites. And then I heard about this aquaponics, and basically what you do is you take that water, pass it through a grow bed that has plants growing in it, and the plants will absorb the nitrates and nitrites and grow. And so we're growing nasubi, growing chilies, chili peppers. What else do we have in there? Tomatoes, of course, tomatoes. And we had moussaka the other night with the eggplant, because you have a lot of eggplants. And we did, I don't know, different things with the plants. But more people are looking at aquaponics as a sustainable. And this is an ancient practice. The Hawaiians used to do this, Chinese used to do this, an ancient practice of utilizing resources that would not harm the environment. So we think something good like buying tilapia, farmed tilapia, sustainable industry. But when you buy the tilapia, it has repercussions in the world around you. Right? The more you buy, the more produce, more waste gets into the environment, unless it's processed somehow. Dairy farming, huge problem. Cattle, huge problem with the waste that needs to go into ponds. And the selenium in the valley is in part a result of the amount of waste that's being kind of emptied into the ground. Groundwater has been affected as a result. So good and bad is not so simple. Good and bad is connected with a lot of other stuff, stuff that we may be unaware of, but it's because our narrow view of the world. And again, it's not a value judgment. It's not you're bad because you have a narrow view of the world. It's just that's the way it is. Our view of the world is limited. The ojuzu, the nenju that we carry, reminds us of that. And these are 108 limitations that we have. And this is just a factor of that, but it's 108 limitations that we have. Our mind, our sight and hearing, taste, touch, are all limited. We can't see or know everything. We're unenlightened. Right? We're unenlightened beings. And as a result, we cause and encounter difficulties for ourselves and for others. Jodo Shinshu has been in this kind of a phase or a mode that we seem to be cultivating a way of sharing the Dharma, Jodo Shinshu, that you need to practice something in order to benefit what is expressed in Jodo Shinshu. The benefit of Jodo Shinshu is in the vow of Amida Buddha, or the work, I should say, of Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha assures everyone, regardless of their abilities or skills, everyone of the eventual resolution of difficulties. And I believe that deeply, that Amida Buddha affirms us as we are. And however we might imagine Amida Buddha, whether it's this universal force or a Buddha living 10 billion Buddha lands to the west in the Pure Land, however we think about Amida Buddha, it is this movement from unenlightenment to enlightenment. That I am assured of that. It doesn't matter what I do or not do. I am assured of that eventual experience of enlightenment. I think because of human beings, the way that we are, we feel that we need to do something. So like this Gata that we just sang, expresses that same thing. The texture of the life to be, right, to be. It depends on what we do now. So we should better be good or we're going to get holes in our Christmas stockings. Right? I mean, we got to be good people, otherwise we're not going to benefit. We got to do something or we don't benefit. And that's the way I think we kind of have a tendency to still see Jodo Shinshu. But I'd like us to begin to think and understand that there is nothing that we can do or not do that will affect the outcome of our movement toward resolution of difficulties. There's nothing that we need to do or cannot do that will affect the outcome of that. What can happen, though, is that our lives can be affected if we understand that process. Our lives can change if we understand that process. How we respond to the world around us, how we engage the world, how we see one another is affected by that understanding. I don't have to worry about things that I have to do or not do. I'm already assured that changes the way that I see the world, that I experience the world and encounter the world. And I think that's where Jodo Shinshu is. It's not about doing the Eightfold Path We have that in our Dharma schools, Dharma school service book, and we talk about, kind of indirectly, about practice, about something that I need to do in order to benefit from Jodo Shinshu. But it's not about good or bad or right or wrong. If there is a moral kind of idea in Buddhism, it is not to cause harm. Don't cause harm. I mean, it's that simple. Don't cause harm. But it's not so simple. Buy tilapia and pollute the world. Not so simple. Just to practice, don't cause harm. That's all. Be aware of one's actions. And as we become aware of our actions, we can begin to realize how profoundly difficult it is to cultivate that mind that is free from difficulties, and how deeply indebted we are to this promise that assures us and affirms us, as we are, of the eventual resolution of difficulties. And so the Nembutsu in Jodo Shinshu is not a practice. It's not something that we do. It is an expression of gratitude and appreciation. We see the world sustain us, support us, allow us to be who we are. We see the world quite differently through the lens of Jodo Shinshu. The Nembutsu is not a petition, it's not a magical formula, it's not going to improve your chances at the slot machine. Namanda, namanda. I know you don't do that, right? but it's okay. It's okay. Because then it reminds us that that's the kind of person that we are, and it's not so bad. I mean, it's not a matter of good or bad. It's about seeing things as they are. That's what Buddhism is about. It's about seeing things as they are and appreciating them as they are. Not put our stamp on what has to be, what should be, the way things, what my expectations are of the world. It's just seeing things as they are, myself mostly. And that I too am assured of the eventual resolution of difficulties. And my response to that is simply Namo Amida Butsu. Okay, thank you very much.